You went from coffee startup, negative cash flow to profitable demo business. What did the Oregon branch do in 2024 from a top line revenue perspective?
Top line for Oregon was 964,000. We're going to try to hit 1.5 in Oregon.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast, where we talk all about starting and growing local service businesses. We're on a mission to help 10,000 listeners start and grow seven-figure service businesses by 2030. In this episode, I have Kent Strickland joining us. Kent was a former coffee entrepreneur turned demolition business owner. Kent realized that starting the sexy millennial Gen Z type craft coffee business wasn't a great way to make money. When his in-laws offered him the opportunity to do a demolition project for them, he quickly saw a business opportunity, and he has since ran straight forward into it and grown it into a seven-figure business with multiple locations in Florida and Oregon. Stick around to hear Kent's story about he transitioned from a coffee entrepreneur to an unsexy, profitable demolition business owner. Kent Sheridan, welcome to the podcast. Kent is the owner and operator of Swift Demo. I was checking you out before this. You got locations in Oregon and Atlanta, and you're in the coffee business before. Welcome to the show.
Yep. Yeah, thank you so much, Austin. I appreciate it. I've followed you on Twitter, and I like what you put out there. No nonsense, and just I think we're cut from the same cloth. I'd hope so, at least.
Yeah, for sure. So you started, pronounce the coffee business name for me.
Voila. Yeah.
Okay. And made a 6-year run at that, and then now you're in the demo business. Can you just kind of share your story about a little bit about starting the coffee business, moving into more of an unsexy service trade business?
Yeah, I think that's a little non-typical that someone comes from like coffee startup world and then jumps over to the trades. I thought it was pretty different also, but for about a decade I was working in coffee, whether being a barista, building coffee carts, and then eventually working on Voila, which was creating instant coffee, like super high-end instant coffee. And I thought that was really fun, cool, exciting. However, it didn't make a lot of money. It got a lot of notoriety, and we were doing really interesting things. We ended up making the highest scoring instant coffee ever made. I created a process to extract, freeze dry, package instant coffee. We were doing it for people all around the world, from Dubai, Malaysia, New Zealand, all over the US. We were making instant coffee for people like Black Rifle, for really high-end, coffee roasters like the Barn in Berlin. It was a super complex business. Food manufacturing and freeze-dry manufacturing in particular, super capital intensive. I mean, I would say the bare minimum startup capital needed is like $8 million really to like have a decent go at it. And I didn't know that getting in. We did a Kickstarter, we did some early fundraising, and we kind of backed our way into that business a little bit. And it was a lot to manage with a small team, and we never really crossed that break-even point. That taught me a lot about simplicity and the importance of simplicity in business and cash flow, just having good positive cash flow. And so at some point I had to close down that business. We didn't have partners that were funding the kind of the shortfall of our negative cash flow each month, and kind of had a little bit of a rocky relationship with some partners there. Ended up having to shut it all down and didn't know what I was going to do next. And sure enough, my in-laws approached me, and they had a remodel company. And they're like, you know what? Now that you're done with that fun coffee business, you should look into getting into the trades. I was like, no way. Sorry. I was just in food and wine. I'm a little too cool to be in the trades. It's kind of not my deal. And they're like, you're not making any money. So they pitched me on demo. They were using some guy to do the demolition part of their remodels. And we're like, we just have a need for this. That's all we know. We have a need for demolition, somebody to come in, do a good job, and we can give you, the jobs that we have. I was like, okay, all right, let me create a little financial model here. Let me plan all this out. This real simple business here. I'm used to real complex stuff. And I made a model, a 1-year model. And I was like, whoa, okay, this actually looks pretty good and makes some money. Looks really simple. And I was like, maybe this is worth looking into. And we made a little partnership with my in-laws. They'd train me, put a little startup capital in, get us a van, some equipment, some tools. And we started there, and I just immediately fell in love with it. I love working with my hands. Like, one of my favorite things about the coffee manufacturing business was working on the equipment, fixing it. I'm very, physical and mechanical. I like that portion of it. And so starting in demo and having that work be right in front of me, and like, my job was go in, you look at what you're going to demo, and you just start and have it be less conceptual. It was just so nice. It was so great to have a business that was straightforward. You go in, do a good job, get paid. And so that's how I started. And it ended up being a really great decision. I'm very thankful for my mother-in-law trying to arm wrestle me into considering demo.
This episode is brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is an all-in-one software management solution for home service and trade businesses. I've been using Jobber since day one when I started Bear Claw. We use it for things like quoting, scheduling, invoicing, and most recently, I've been using it for our snow plowing services. I love it for snow plowing because we're able to create a job specific to the client's profile, and we're able to track visits each time we go out and plow. This is important because each visit is logged in the system and it's ready to send invoices at the end of the month. So I never have to worry about how many times did we plow a specific customer's account, because Jobber takes care of all of that for us. If you are interested in an all-in-one solution for managing your home service or trade business, look no further than Jobber. They're offering 6 months at a 20% discount if you use the link in the description below.
What about that financial model that you put together made you have that aha moment? Like, what did that actually look like numbers wise?
Well, this is really funny because, I feel like I'm not great with numbers, but if I sit and I focus on it, I feel like a lot of clarity comes to me through building a model. And so, I just asked him a lot of questions like, all right, how many guys does it take to demo a bathroom, kitchen? What is that going to cost? And so through building the model, I was able to distill, what it took to, say, hit 500,000 a year. And that's kind of what I came to, is somewhere around 500,000 our first year. I was like, who knows if that's possible, but if we hit that, it looks like it has great margins. That would help me, kickstart this new chapter in my life, because I spent 6 years doing coffee and not making a dime from it. I paid myself a little bit, but it was kind of a moonshot type of business. It's like, either we're going to be multi-million-dollar valuation or we're going to collapse. And so it's kind of a risky business. So seeing a model where even from month 2, there was profit there was just not what I was used to. And I was like, that alone is worth giving it a shot. And there weren't, from the model, there weren't 1,000 different moving parts. There weren't, crazy payment terms and work in progress between different phases of production. That's what I was used to. And so it helped me wrap my mind around what I was going to get myself into and all of the requirements. And I really recommend that to somebody who's considering a new venture. I've helped chat with a few people about getting started in a new business. And that's what I always say is, like, map it out backwards. And the crazy thing about that model, which I don't know how it happened, but I'd forgotten about it. And we were about 8 months in to doing Swift. And I was like, let me just pull up where we are now and compare it against that model. Our bottom line was off by less than $2,000. Like, every month was either plus or minus a couple thousand. It was dead accurate. I was like, oh my gosh. So we ended up doing I think 480,000 that first year from zero. And it was great.
That's awesome. So can you talk to us about like what type of demo you're doing? Are you using excavators and everything, like full on demo,
Not at
or are
all.
you going inside and doing stuff for remodels?
Yeah, it's not full scale demolition. It's not full teardowns. So it's called selective demolition or deconstruction. If you talk to people who are in the commercial game, that's what they'll call it. And it's fantastic. So when people are doing tenant improvements to commercial spaces, let's say it's a restaurant like a Crystal's and they're turning into a bank, it's like the places are switching over, or it's a remodel of somebody's kitchen or bathroom. We go in, we tear all the old finishes, prep it, and get it ready for the trades coming in after us.
That's awesome. So what did your first job look like?
Tearing out a shower with my father-in-law because I didn't know what I was doing.
So what do you, like, for our listeners, what do you need to go do this stuff? What kind of tools and what does your crew look like?
Yeah. So you need a van and a dump trailer, and then you need, a good amount of hand tools, hammer, pry bar. Those are your best friends right there. And then a really powerful vacuum, a dust extractor vacuum. Other than that, what we specialize in is full dust containment. Our name when we first got started was Swift Dustless Demo. And so we kind of pitched ourselves as this high-end demolition company, kind of like a white glove service. So we're putting up plastic protection. We're doing a negative air. And that's how we were able to kind of charge a little bit more premium price and position ourselves as a premium trade in something that is typically like the worst part of a remodel, part that blows your home up with dust. You have to like be wiping down everything. It gets in your HVAC system and it's pumping out dust through the rest of your house. We pitched ourselves as, let's start off your project really well and with a really kind of white glove service. So we're putting drop cloths down. So really, yeah, our tools are so simple. I have like a Google sheet of all the tools we need. It's like, these are our favorite drop cloths. These are our favorite vacuums, hand tools. But truly it is really simple. I feel like you don't need much. Like anybody could really start, at least on the residential side, with, if you have a mind for being thoughtful and careful and knowing when to like utterly destroy everything and then when to slow down and be meticulous, man, you can succeed at demo for sure.
Man, I would suck at that. I like big mulchers and putting it on high.
I know. I love watching what you do. I'm like, I'd love to get into full scale demolition someday, but it's a crowded market for sure, especially in a larger city. There's a lot of guys who've, been doing it for 20, 30 years. But, when there's people who've been doing it that long as well, there's always room for a new buck to come in and kind of shake it up and kind of take a new approach to it as well. I think that's the great thing about the trades. It's like that generational shift, and you have somebody new coming in and wanting to treat their guys well and have a good workplace culture and good branding, like Bear Claw.
Yeah, thanks. No, I appreciate it. We share a similar mindset in that. I mean, you see it too. Like people are just phasing out of these services and trades, and I mean, it's just opening up the opportunity. And I know that you mentioned branding was something that's really important to you. Everything's shifting online. So my question for you is, how did you, all right, I got multiple questions here, but before I forget this one, because my head is going to like, all right, if I'm searching for your service, how are you differentiating online between like, hey, we're a demo company, like we're a big excavators come in and blow this building down. How are you differentiating between confusing people who are searching for your service? Like what's the differentiator there?
Yeah. So
dustless?
Really dustless. I mean, not a lot of people search dustless, to be honest. And with Swift, we're mostly a B2B type of business. We've been hitting it hard online and we're starting to get, a a lot more people finding us who are homeowners who will use our service. But really, it's just about hitting the pavement, knocking on doors, and calling remodelers. So that's in the coffee business. Our big play was B2B. And I just have such an affinity for B2B business. I love it so much. Maybe it's because I'm really bad at doing advertising and Google AdWords or whatever. Yeah. I mean, the way I got started was just in Oregon. We were kind of in a small resort, like a mountain town. Think of like not like kind of like an Aspen, but Aspen 10 years behind, a town that's has some limits to it. Everybody kind of knows everybody in that town, but there's some high-end homes. And I would just go to door to door for these remodelers and just go, hey, I'm new to town, or not, I wasn't new to town, but I'm new. This is what I want to do. If you want to give me a shot, I'd love to, impress you and show you what I can do. And kind of got my first business that way, branching, I worked for my in-laws in their remodel business, but we wanted to keep that on the down low, that I'd be working for their competitors and, that there was a connection there. And that's how it started. And you land one account and they could be giving you 4 or 5 jobs a month after that. So, the return on actually putting yourself out there, making the call, dropping off a card, doing some pricing is really high. And that's what I love about B2B. In terms of people finding me, I would say even today, a couple years in, we get maybe 3 or 4 people a month who maybe they've done a remodel before and kind of understand, demolition is it is phase 1 in this process. And they'll search, is there a demolition contractor? And they see us, they see our crew on the website. They see that we have an attention to detail and want a dustless service. And that kind of sells them right there. But it's definitely not a direct to consumer type of business.
Okay. Understood. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my second question. How did you go get those first jobs outside of your mother-in-law's business? And you sort of answered it right there, where you said you went door to door to, and that's where I'm unclear on. You went door to door to who? Remodeling contractors?
Exactly. Remodelers.
Okay. So, and is that your sole focus on B2B outreach?
So for the first year, we only worked in residential to get started. And so that was our client, our customer is remodelers, either independent guys or like a remodel house where they have a team themselves. And so, yeah, it took me kind of getting used to sales again, getting used to rejection, calling people up, just going, hey, I'm sure you got a great guy you already use. I'd love to just get you a good number. This is what I do. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it'll be a fit. I'd love if you could give me a shot, get a foot in the door. For anybody starting, you can't underestimate how valuable it is to just ask somebody to give you a foot in the door. Really? I mean, even like 2 or 3 times going back into the same place. I can think of a few people off the top of my head that I walked into their showroom, their remodel company, and they're like, "Oh, we're good." It's like, all right, I'll check back in a month and a half. Walk back in again. I'm like, here he is again. Hey, checking in.
I'm not going anywhere.
I'd love to just get one job under the belt. And if you don't like it, totally fine. But just give me a shot. And when you're first starting, you have a lot of imposter syndrome. And I think like as you break into new phases in your business, you're always going to have some imposter syndrome around, am I really qualified to do this? There's guys, they've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But people really appreciate when you come in with transparency and you're honest and you just go, hey, I'm trying to get something off the ground here. I'm passionate about this. I think passion goes a long way. It did for the coffee business when I was pitching investors. That's when I learned, you got to paint the vision for people sometimes. If you want them to believe and, invest in your business, same thing happens in construction and demolition. If you're a subcontractor or tradesperson, look, I'm trying to get something off the ground. I'm going to give you 110% here and I'm going to learn, but I'm going to make sure your job is perfect. And after 2 or 3 times, people go, all right, let's get you in on one. And I remember one place in particular, they were pretty prickly towards me walking in the door, always shutting me down really quick. No, we're good. We have our own guys. And then I walked in one day, and the front desk person is usually, they're trying to protect the owner. I don't know if you've ever, called a place and they're like, no, Mike's busy. Mike's too busy. He doesn't want to talk to you. Send an email. And I walked into this place that had done that a few times for me already. And she said the same thing, and someone else saw me, and they kind of knew who I was over there. And they're like, hold on. Come here. Our 2 demo guys just quit today. They didn't show up. I'm not kidding. Can you work tomorrow? I'm like, you got it. And then they ended up being one of my highest volume clients for that whole year, because they were in a bind and I was there at the right time. And you never know. You don't know what you're going to walk into, and it's worth. That was the 3rd time I'd been in there. And, you kind of have that feeling in your stomach. You're like, oh man, I'm bugging these people. They don't want to hear this, but I'm going to do it anyway. You kind of just got to get over that in order to get something off the ground. Because it's worth it. What's going to happen? They say no for a 3rd time, and then you go home and spend time with your family, at least for me. And it's like, you're not thinking about that. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And that was worth it for sure. They ended up spending, I don't even know how much, $40,000. And for a residential client, I mean, that's a lot in a couple of months. In like 3 months, $40,000 in jobs. So that was worth that 3rd visit. That was worth that uncomfortable conversation.
Man, I'm so excited that you brought this up, because it was a topic I was talking with somebody about the other day. The reality is, like, even if you get told no that 3rd time, like, I think, get so in our head as entrepreneurs and talk ourselves out of things. But it's so cool to watch how you've just pushed through that uncomfortable feeling. Because the reality is, like, when you frame it that who cares if they say no, the other reality is that they don't even actually care, nor are they really thinking about that after you walk out the door. They may like make a joke about it, like, oh, he's there for the 3rd time again, but like, they're not thinking about you when they go home, and I think we just like make this big deal out of it as an entrepreneur, like, oh, what are these people going to think if I walk in for the 3rd time? And it's so cool that you just like push through that, because they don't even care. They really don't. So there's no downside to doing it. And even if they say no for a 3rd time, why not go back for a 4th? It almost just turns into a game at that point.
Yeah, if you can have that mindset, and it's hard. It's not easy to have that mindset, but exactly what you said, Austin, like frame it as this is all a game. It's the game of business. At the end of the day, that's what you're there to do. You're playing that role in the game of business, and it's not personal. It may feel personal. It may hurt, still when I cold call people, especially, so I'm in Atlanta now. I moved my family here. And so I'm starting from zero again as of last spring. I kind of got out here. And so in the summer I started. So I'm calling all new people again. And still I'm like, all right, let's dial this number. And you get people on the phone that, are pretty cold and no, we're good. And it's like, oh, you could totally let that hurt you, or you could just be like, all right, I made the call. Check. I made that call. Next. I think that mindset goes so far, more than almost anything else. When you're getting started, if you can have that mindset that I'm here to play this game, and that's what's required of me. If you're playing football, you're going to get tackled. That's part of the game. If you're scared of that, then you shouldn't be playing. It's all part of it.
That's exactly right. But you still got to show up the next day and go to practice and put in the reps. And it's just no different. So I'm really glad you brought it up.
This episode is brought to you by Bear Claw Media. Bear Claw Media is a growth agency for service and trade-based business owners. If you want to grow your business and you offer a high-ticket service in local service or trades, there's a really good chance that we can help you grow with Facebook, Google Ads, and content creation for platforms like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you're interested in growing your business, check out gobearclawmedia.com.
What does your crew size look like, and how did you think about building a crew whenever you got that first job?
Yeah. So quickly, I brought on one guy. I had a couple of interviews, but I brought in one guy, and you've done hiring. It's funny. Sometimes you can just tell right away. You got a person, a player on your team, and that's the first person I brought in, Dan. From the second I saw him, I knew he had it. He wasn't bringing baggage into work. He was just there to have a good time and put in the work. And so I brought in one person, and then him and I just performed all the jobs. He's still with me today. So I brought him on really early, and he's been with Swift for 3 years now. And we've had, other than me letting go a few bad apples, I've had zero turnover in the business, because I want to make sure people are enjoying their work. We've all been at workplaces that just, they chew you up and spit you out. I wanted to create an environment that, my employees could be honest with me. And so that's what I did with Dan. I brought him on and said, hey, this is what we're here to do. We're here to serve our customer well. We're here to make sure that they have, that demos their favorite phase of the project, that they look back and they're excited to start their remodel, because we're here before all the big problems happen, before their client goes back and go, oh, we need more money because we didn't know this was here and that was there. And so I started by interviewing people, casting that vision for what Swift was going to be, and that's how we started. So we started with one guy, and him and I were just banging out these jobs together, and just slowly grew from there, and just trying to fill the pipeline until, two guys wasn't enough, and then bring on a third and bring on a fourth. Right now we have, I believe we have 6 full-time crew members in Oregon. And then I have a commercial project manager who oversees and runs all of our commercial projects. And then a general manager that runs the full show over there. And then here in Atlanta, I have 3 full-time people working with me. But I'm still there full-time as kind of like project manager, general manager as well. And then bringing in some temporary guys as needed. So yeah, we just grew consistently and slowly. And my focus the whole time was, now that we have, let's say 2 guys, just filling in the schedule to where that became too much, and then bringing in another one, and then just kind of like forcing myself to bring in the work, more and more work, taking on new clients each time we bring in a new crew member. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little tangent.
What does an average job size look like for you?
On residential, our average job size is around, in Oregon, it's around, I believe, $7,000 for an average job. We're doing pretty large jobs over there. For Atlanta, I would say the average job size on residential is around 2,000. And then on the commercial side of things, the average job size, I believe, is around 18,000 in Oregon. And then in Atlanta, the average job size is about the same right now. Atlanta is a much larger market. And so I think quickly our average for commercial is going to be more around $40,000 or $50,000. We've already done, a couple that are over that, or right around there, and I think that'll soon become our new average. But it's interesting. It's 2 totally different markets, different rules and regulations. So I've still got a lot to learn here.
You went from coffee startup, negative cash flow, to profitable demo business. This is awesome. I love it. So how long did you build the Oregon crew before you moved to Atlanta to start that one?
A little over 2 years I was working in Oregon. I would love to stay there, but I have a wife and 2 kids, and I'm from Atlanta here. I'm from North Atlanta and in Alpharetta. I wanted to be closer to my parents, and I really like the environment here. It's a great place to raise a family, and has a lot more opportunity here just on many fronts. And so I made the kind of tough decision to relocate. And then with that, I knew, of course, I'm just going to do another Swift here.
What did the Oregon branch do in 2024 from a top line revenue perspective?
So 2024 was our first year without me completely. I kind of left. I left pretty early. I was fully phased out by the beginning of March. So it really only had me for 2 months. And those 2 months I was training the general manager. And so top line for Oregon was 964,000.
That's great. And then what do you think that 2025 will be? Have you set any goals around it?
Yeah, so we're about to have our new budget meeting at the end of this month and set what those goals are, but we're going to try to hit 1.5 in Oregon. We're going to have to start traveling outside of our little tri-cities there to hit that. But those are kind of our goals. We want to become a crew that starts to play in the other larger metros like Salem and Portland. We've been bidding on a lot of projects, but it all starts to change when you have when you start stepping into those larger markets. You have other people, at least on the commercial front, you have other people that are bidding aggressively, and you need to press into the relationship side of things, build relationships, build trust. And I think we're on track to do that.
That's great. I do have a connection up there. Actually, we did some work for a land clearing project down here, and a consultant came down from that area. So we'll talk offline about that afterwards. But yeah, he does a lot of big projects up there. He's just a great human being. And it's kind of one of those things like, you get in business and you're just like, and I don't know if you're religious at all, but for me, I just think like, man, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, because sometimes God will just like give you this little handout where it's like, man, that it feels just like supernatural at that point where this person will show up into your life and you're like, man, I don't feel like I deserve this. And I was just talking to this guy yesterday, and he's like, look, man, send me any of your excavation bids. If you want me to review them, I'll give you feedback on them. I mean, this guy's got like 40 years experience doing big civil projects all over the nation. And so, yeah, anyway, so that's a tangent, but we can talk offline.
That's incredible, man. I mean, I agree. Those things come into your life and it's just like, yeah. I mean, it's like total provision, and it's like, all right, little God wink right there. Like, all right,
yeah,
we're on the right track for sure.
For sure. So you have 6 guys on the crew up there. How do you split? So let's call it $1 million business, top line revenue. Are you running 3 crews of 2, 2 crews of 3, 1 of 6? What does that look like?
Yeah. So really it's like a 3 and 3 crew right now for most projects, but we divert resources where we need them. A lot of times if we have, say, a pretty large commercial, $100,000 commercial job, and we're going to be on it for, 2-3 weeks, we have all hands on deck for that. And then once we build a little momentum on those larger projects, we'll break off, maybe 2 people handle a quick bathroom turnaround, over there. So we have, 2 crews, 2 sets of rigs that go out and kind of have it tooled up for commercial and a residential. We started with just a little like short Sprinter with a little mini dump trailer in the back, and now we got box truck, F-250, a larger dump trailer, and then we'll do some roll-offs if needed too. So yeah, just like chunking up each time and plugging the holes where we need to, and it's fun. Sometimes it's a little chaotic. We run a lot of projects. We're cranking out jobs over there for sure. But that's what it takes. That's what it takes to hit the numbers we did with such a small crew. I mean, like I said, the first year hitting, just under 500,000, it was just a crew of 3 guys, by the end of it, 3 guys and myself, and 1 van, 1 dump trailer, just cranking nonstop. So, but that's what it takes, is like not being afraid to kind of say yes and just put your head down and get it done.
And you just put so much sweat equity in that business in that first year. And I mean, it's like, it's funny, like you'll get like a finance bro on X who will chime in about like owner operated business. It's like, well, that's not the true cost. And it's like, well, that's what it takes. You got to hustle, and your time is going to be, you're going to value your time at the labor rate, right? You're just going to be a $35 an hour employee of the business just to get it up and off the ground. Why? Because somebody has to do it. And if you don't do it,
right,
if you don't drive it, nobody else is going to do it at that phase. So hats off to you for pushing through that phase. Now that you've got the crews rolling, I'm interested to hear what your gross profit margin is on that. So you got a crew of 3, got what?
Yep.
Probably paying them what, like $30 an hour? Let's just take a guess.
Yeah. Average 30 or at least for that market.
So what do you run? 5 8-hour days or 4 10-hour days? How do you run your crews?
8-hour days. Yeah. I mean, demo's not easy. It's not easy on your body. That was the first thing we kind of all talked about and decided is like, man, you can really wear yourself out. And I wanted to be intentional and careful that I was checking in with my guys. How you feeling? Especially when we're running hot, when we're redlining that thing, it's like, man, how we doing? Do we need to schedule an off day? And just being really intentional about not destroying these guys, because you're on your hands and knees sometimes. You're bent over pulling up tile floor. I mean, like it's brutal work for sure. And you're covered in dust. And so, I would say we've always done 8-hour days. And then occasionally we pencil in like an off day. Usually kind of how I like to set up the schedule is every other week or every other Friday, we would have a penciled in off day, like a rest day in there, just to give everybody a break. And then if the schedule was totally full for that month, like complete max capacity, then we would check in with the guys and go, hey, we got to fill in this Friday. We have somebody that needs something. Are we all good? And then if everybody's on board to, kind of tighten their belt and get it done, then we, put it on that off day, and everyone would kind of make a collective decision to do that.
So you've got average ticket size, $7,000 residential job. Like, what does a $7,000 job look like from a time perspective? Is that a 3-day job, 2-day job?
It's a 2-day job, I'd say. Yeah. So I'll kind of cut to the chase here. Our net profit first year was 30%, bottom line. And that was with me taking an income as well. So I was on W-2, round, I'd say 85 average salary there. So I tried to make sure, I was taking everything into consideration for that. And, we just worked hard. We don't have a lot of materials. We don't have a lot of costs other than dump fees, some gloves, some plastic. And that's what I really like about the business as well is, we're not installing anything. We don't need to purchase lumber ahead of time. It's just show up, do the job, get paid.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, coming from coffee where we were like, okay, we got to plan 6 months out ordering green coffee because by the time it lands to the port in the US, it's going to be, 2 months later. And then we got to send that to our roaster, toll roast. Okay, it's like you're planning for 8 months, basically, of all this work in progress, all this money tied up. And then you're converting that to instant. And then by the time you get, it's like, man, your whole year is gone if you don't plan ahead. And back to looking at that model is like, oh man, the clarity that hit me of like, we just get a job and we do it and we get paid. It's like that really frees you up to build a good business because you don't have to, there's only so much you can hold up here, and if you cut out all the complexity, it allows you to just focus on getting sales in the door or hiring better people. The levers of business are right in front of you. I'm about to put out a YouTube video kind of like talking about these lessons that I learned from closing Voila to opening Swift. And that's one of them. It's like, man, simple work is meaningful work, and it allows you to focus. It allows you to see the simple levers that are right in front of you to build something great.
Dude, I love it. And I'd love to collaborate, give any feedback on that video. I'd love to,
Yeah, I'll send it.
do your video and then we should collaborate on that. Cause, I think there would likely be a lot of similar, learning lessons that we've probably both taken away. Cause I know all the things you're talking about right now are things that I definitely had aha moments on as well.
Striker Digital specializes in SEO services specifically for local service businesses. Bodie and Andy, the two co-founders, have helped me get Bear Claw Land Services to the #1 search result on Google inside my state for my specific search term. If you want to learn more, visit strikerdigital.com. That's STRYKER-digital.com.
People will reach out all the time and ask, like just yesterday, for example, this one guy was asking about, should I start an excavation business or should I start a pest control? And my answer is always like, man, it's up to you. Like I'm not gonna give any feedback there, because I think it all has to come down to the entrepreneur. And if you want to start an excavation or a land clearing business, like you truly got to want to start that, and you got to have the experience of the operations. Because like my business compared to yours is absolutely so much more simple, and I'm secretly jealous of how simple that is, because your operating costs are, I mean, after you've got your dump trailer paid off, which is max like a $10,000 purchase,
right?
Then you've got an F-250, or I think you said 250, not a 350, like whatever. I mean, if it's a truck, right? Relatively small cost in the grand scheme of things. And then you've got the labor, and you're doing high ticket service trade jobs. It's a beautiful business model. The fact that you were able to pay yourself a salary, which is something that's very important too. A lot of people will reach out and they're like, how do I pay myself? And it's like, well, just put yourself on salary for a reasonable amount. Because if you do that, then you're gonna, at a very minimum, go make enough in the business to like figure out how to pay yourself out of that. And so that's cool that you did that year one. And then you hit 30% margin. So they're like rough numbers. Year one, 150K of net profit after paying yourself a salary. That's awesome. And the people who are listening to this, the point that why I'm chiming in, that I'm trying to make in the big epiphany I've had, we've brought on shoveling services inside our snow business. And it's so funny when people will ask like, what are you doing this winter? And I'll tell them like, yeah, we've got shovel crew shoveling. And they're like, oh man, that must suck. And I'm like, dude, we have a shovel and labor costs. That's all we have.
Yeah.
I don't have to buy a $10,000 snowplow. I don't have to buy a truck. It's like, it's so simple. And so to your point, focusing on the simple things like, where do I get jobs and who do I hire?
Amen to that. You know, I could go off on this for, a lot longer than this episode, but just to speak on that, and like my development in this process is with the coffee business. I was sorry to like kind of go back to that, but
no, please.
It really is like, I had a full 180, and with the coffee business, I had my own e-commerce brand, my own branding. I was doing all sorts of side projects. I was putting out, t-shirts and crazy, like, behind me, there's this acrylic neon, like cigarette case that's like super cool and retro. And like we put this out and it was like a fun product. And then we got, some of my investors did Nespresso capsules, and we were adding that as a service. And it's like, we just kept adding stuff that was cool. We just kept like shiny object syndrome took over. And I was like, man, maybe this will pop off and get us somewhere. Maybe we do this. And it was like my immaturity in business just going like, this is a vehicle for me to do all the fun, cool, exciting stuff I want to do. It really resulted in nothing. I mean, it resulted in me learning that wasn't important, but it's like, at the end of the day, like it didn't put anything on the table for my family. And yeah, as like cool and fun as this is, like, okay, yeah. How much time did I spend on, sourcing that and engraving the top and getting the magnets just right? It's like, what did that actually do for me? Why didn't I just land 10 more deals? And so the 180 for me is just realizing like, it's so many people that I talk to who, are looking to become a first-time entrepreneur. or start a business, they have a big idea. And that idea so many times is like completely reinventing something. I wanted to reinvent instant coffee. And yeah, okay, I did some great things, but man, that's such an uphill battle. Why sign yourself up for that? Why not just take something that's tried and true, that's going to be around for the next 100 years? People are always going to need land clearing. People are always going to need a good tradesperson who does an excellent job. And it's like, take something that's simple and then put your own spin on it. If your own spin is branding and marketing, if your own spin is like, I have great workplace culture and great guys, like it just makes everything so much easier. And so that you can go out and just, work on sales, work on, okay, we're going to get 10% faster, more efficiency. We're going to do whatever, it's like, it's so much easier and so much less friction when your business is simple, your idea is tried and true, and then you can just apply the basics to it. And that way, if things go sideways for a month, hey, maybe there's a different lever here I have to pull. Maybe I have to pick up the phone and call, 20 new remodelers this month instead of like, oh, hey, maybe let's create like some new glasses that have AI in the earpiece. It's like, man, just keep it simple. Just keep it simple.
It's so true. It's so true. How old are your kids?
5 and almost 3.
And how old are you?
31.
Okay, so we're similar age. Same epiphany. Kids are an incredible motivator. And
oh yeah,
what's interesting,
highly recommended.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm curious to know, like, once your kids started getting older, it was like, where was the value placed? Like, where's the value shift from, I want to launch this cool product, to, I just want to make some money so that my kids have food on the table and a mortgage paid for?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so huge because my daughter was, she was 2 when I started Swift. And so she saw kind of the coffee business as, really when she was really little. And I was in the process of kind of on the last leg of that, trying to make it work. And so when I had to close that business, it was pretty devastating for me and my family because I'd spent so much time. My wife had given so much emotionally and so much support to that business for so long. 6 years is a long time to be like, hoping and dreaming that maybe, it's going to pop off one day. We're going to turn that corner and just make, tons of money and just scrapping and saving to get to that point. And so to close that, it's funny. This is actually my next video is kind of on this topic too, on just like being okay to try something and not being afraid if it fails, because I had the most learnings going through the process of closing that business down, because up into that point when things were falling apart, I thought everything was going to be over. No one was going to like me. He was going to have a bad reputation. 6 years of my life were going to be wasted. And then as soon as I closed it and told everybody, everyone was like, man, that was so cool. It's so inspiring. I can't wait for what you do next. And it was kind of like, it ended up being nothing. And then all the clarity hits, I don't know if you've ever people say when you go through, when you're in a relationship and you go through a breakup, it's like after that, you like have all this new clarity of like who you are and who you want to look for and all that stuff. And same thing happens in business. It's like, I closed that after so long and I was like, oh, I'm still here. I'm still alive. And like, now I have to provide for this family. And it's like, I could take all of those learnings and just be like, wait, it's not all for nothing. It's all of like, I now have a whole new tool set and tool belt for what I'm going to apply to my next thing. And that's exactly what I did. I had a great opportunity with I'm so fortunate for my mother-in-law, who's a big visionary and was able to see that and kind of like convince me to do something like this. But, I'm thankful for the opportunity vehicle that she helped, put me in. But those learnings were so invaluable. Just be like, wow, it's not for nothing. You can just start over and now look what's happened. It's like, I was able to build something way faster, 10 times as fast as before, with a lot less headaches. And one of the big things that I wanted to do in starting Swift was create something that provided for other people in a very meaningful way, and was a really a great workplace to have, other people come to and feel valued and have their unique contributions matter as well. So that was like a big driver for me, is, I didn't have in Voila, I had some employees, but, I had to convince them to put their blood, sweat, and tears in without too much compensation. And with Swift, it's quite the opposite. We get to pay our guys really well, treat them really well, take them out, go shooting, for our little like team bonding. And Swift has become kind of like a cultural thing where in our town in Oregon, we have the people at the transfer station at the dump. They're like, hey, can we work for Swift? We have applications coming in all the time because they see how excited our guys are and how passionate they are. They rep Swift, their Swift hats and sweatshirts at the gym. And we have people coming up to us all the time, be like, I want to be a part of that. And that's just like, it's so cool. I know I'm going all over the place on it, but like, it's worth going through what I went through to now being able to build Swift and have that impact in my town and for my family as well.
Yeah, it's a lot better whenever your guys are actually getting paid better than fair wages and they're happy and their bills are paid, than trying to convince them to build the next startup and scrap along with you, right? Like, I think there's a harsh reality that a lot of millennials and Gen Z just need to come to terms with. And it's like, if you want people to stick around, just pay them well. Because as much as people say money's not a big deal, it's a big deal to them whenever they can't pay their bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in these service and trade businesses, it's like, man, it's so cool that you've had this epiphany, because I've had a similar journey as well. And we won't go into that on this podcast, but man, these are such necessary services. Another way that I've thought about it too is like, these transactions are happening whether you start a business or not in Dustless Demo. Like, somebody's going to pay $7,000 to $18,000 to somebody else tomorrow and the next day and the next day in your market for somebody to come in and demo something, right? And so it's like, if you've got this skill of like branding and B2B sales and all that stuff, for listeners out there, I'm so bullish on services and trades, and I'm so thankful that you came on and shared your experience, because I believe that your story is going to be inspiring to a lot of other people.
If you haven't signed up for the weekly newsletter yet, go to ownerops.com/newsletter. That's OWNROPS.com/newsletter. We summarize all of the learning lessons from the interviews with the guests on the podcast, and we distill those into short, actionable tips, tricks, tactics, and strategies that you can use to grow your own local service business. Sign up for the newsletter at ownerops.com. That's OWNROPS.com.
Is there anything else? I'm going to target this question a little more specific. You mentioned the YouTube video about the learning lessons. What learning lessons, just off the top of your head, can you share with listeners before we wrap this episode up about the learning lessons you're taking from that first sexy business to your unsexy business?
That's a pretty broad question, but I think I'll target this to somebody who maybe you're in something right now that you're questioning, whether to keep going or whether to start something new. There's two components here. One is and they're kind of at odds with each other a little bit. One is that we haven't hit on, that I'm going through myself here, is the time it takes to cross that edge to where you have wind in your sails and like momentum behind you. Because what I haven't talked about is how long it took to where I thought we were good in Swift. Because even though in the first year we had done 500, and in the second year we did just under $1 million. So we did, 900 just over 900,000 at a 33% margin as well. 18 months in, so a year and a half in, I was still questioning whether Swift was going to keep going. And you may think that's crazy that a year and a half in, after having so much, success, going from zero to, we were profitable 150, let's say, and, we got a crew of guys, you're still going to hit a dry season where nothing is working and you're making calls and nothing's coming through and your calendar is empty. And, like for me, I get calendar anxiety, and I'm sure a lot of guys listening probably feel the same way. It's like, before I had different anxieties before in the coffee business, but now I get calendar anxiety. And I remember hitting a dry season and being like, maybe this is it. Maybe people don't want demo, maybe it's not as good as I thought. Maybe I just had a few good seasons, a few good wins, few great clients, and now maybe one dropped me because they hired somebody in-house, or you just get in. It's really easy to get in your head and go, all right, well, that's it. Nobody's calling me, nothing's perspective, nothing's on the horizon. And what it is like what I've realized going through that, and now going through that again here, is it just takes time. It takes time to prime the pump. It takes time to get the word out there about who you are. And it's like, I don't know what it is, but like sometimes it just takes a couple years to where that word of mouth spreads, and you kind of, from one day to the next, like one season to the next, you'll just eventually cross over into where you have that word of mouth that starts to spread on its own. And you just, no matter how well you can be doing, if you haven't gotten there, if you haven't put the time in, it really is, it's like a countdown almost. It's like the time it takes to where word of mouth becomes exponential. And when you're breaking into a new business or into a new market, like I am here, like even now I'm like, man, I have these moments where I'm like, I don't know, we'll see. I encourage people that if you are doing what you need to be doing, like if you're in the business that you believe in, just give it time, because you'll look back 5 years and be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I realize like it was spring break and no one was wanting to get any work done, or like, man, nobody knew about us and I thought we had tapped out the market. It's like, it takes a couple of years to build that momentum and build that word of mouth. And I think it's really easy to forget about that and underestimate how long that actually takes. No matter how good your branding is, no matter how good you were doing 2 months ago, these types of businesses, they take time and they take effort. And that's what is going to separate, the people who give it a try for a season and then quit and then start the next thing until they hit their own valley of despair, until they hit their own dry couple of weeks. And so if you really believe in doing what you're doing right now, that's a gift to you to be able to push through that season, because on the other side of that is success. And on the other side of that is resilience and perspective. And it's just all part of the game. And you have to be able to embrace that, and good things will come.
Man, that's such a good word. It is such a good word. And you hit the nail on the head. I still go through that every season, multiple times a year.
We all do, man.
Multiple times.
We all do. And it's hard, but what happens is the first time you go through, it's really tough because you don't know what's on the other side. And then the second time, like maybe you've forgotten about the first time, but maybe by the third time you're like, wait, I've gone through this before. We'll just keep going. We'll see what happens. And so for me, I like to talk to my dad because all growing up, he owned a landscaping business, and landscaping can be pretty seasonal. And especially in Georgia, when it just starts to rain and rain and rain, and he'll tell me a story. He's like, yeah, remember when we moved into our new house and we had that new mortgage and it was a lot more than the old one? Well, it rained for 2 months straight and I had no work. And he tells me, I just had to hand it over to God and go, this is in your hands. And sometimes you go through that. And the more you go through it, the more you realize it's just a season. It's just a window. And if you're starting out, it's just priming the pump. You just got to get past that. And it can take 2 years, but getting through that is everything, man. It really is. It's everything.
There's so many points you brought up in there that I want to dive deeper on. We should do this in a second episode because we're nearing the mark here. But remind me next time, whenever you come on, let's talk about the Valley of Despair and let's talk about tailwinds. Because I have this concept in my head and I think you and I could likely flush it out. But it's like whenever you're starting, it's like you've got to go tell as many people as you possibly can. Like it's just like spray wide. And then whoever you get to say yes, it's like all the focus goes on to delivering 5-star service, like the absolute perfect job. Because if that person's happy, then you know that you're going to get, especially if it's B2B, you know you're going to get their second one and you know you're going to get their third one. But it's going to take maybe another 30, 60, 90, maybe 120 days for maybe that contractor to have another one where they consider you on, right? So then you got to go refocus on like spray again. And then you're spraying and you're marketing and telling people, and then somebody else gives you the job. And then you're focusing all the efforts on delivering. And then it's back to spray. And I feel like it's just this consistent focus, this consistent transition between like go wide, focus. And go wide is like marketing. And then it's like focus, you're in operations, right? So the early stage entrepreneur, you're literally wearing so many different hats between marketing. As you get somebody hot, you're focusing your sales skills, then you close them, and then you go into operational skills, right? And then as you do that multiple times, then you're still spending money on your marketing budget, or you're still trying to like, I mean, I'm still in this phase. I consciously wear a Bear Claw sweatshirt every time I do a podcast because I want more eyeballs on our brand, right? We're still in the spray wide. But over time, I've consciously thought about this. It's like every single job we deliver on and every single experience that we have a great experience with that customer, that person is going to go hopefully tell somebody. But here's the kicker. That person doesn't immediately go, oh my gosh, Bear Claw just came in and they cleared our land and like, you guys should clear some land, right? Or Kent and Swift just came in and demoed our project. That's not really how it happens. What happens is that person has an interaction a year later with somebody else and they're like, yeah, we're looking for somebody to demo. And it's like, oh, I use these guys. Let me search my phone real quick. I think his name, is Swift, right? Yeah. And then that's when that's when word of mouth happens. And so it's this long-term compounding effect. And I would love to unpack this. And I really want to put it in like a graph or a visual, kind of like how they do what you mentioned, the Valley of Despair. But I would love to unpack that with you because I can already tell like you've thought through all this as well. What does 5, 10, 15, 20 years look like if you just stay committed to doing that? Like marketing, sales, focus, deliver. Marketing, sales, focus, deliver. And I mean, I think we both know the answer. The answer is if you deliver good work, you're going to get the tailwind effect. But I don't know about you. I haven't, like we get calls, but I haven't experienced this like crazy tailwind effect that you talk to a contractor who's been in business for 25 years and delivering great service. Like those guys' phones literally ring nonstop.
Yeah. They just get a call. I got another one, you know?
Yeah. Any comments on that or anything else? Like
that's so huge, man. We've got to be able to articulate that because, you know, how many people at the end of year one, when they hear about land clearing, are going to refer you? And then how many people in year two, you know, if they have a buddy talking about land clearing, you know, it's like, are you going from 5 or 10? Is that how many people at year 10 are you going to have in your area that when anybody mentions land clearing, it could be, it's exponential. If 5,000 people who, if anybody they know mentions land clearing, your name's coming up. It's like that can't be overstated how important that is.
And so then
all these little things happening in the background,
Yeah. All those interactions, right? Sorry to cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
Please finish if you still have some.
No. That's huge, man.
So then it just becomes, how do you stick through those valleys of despair? Like, how do we not make rash decisions to go make some drastic change in the business and derail it from the current track?
Right. And it's so easy to do that. It's so you have way too much time on your hands too. It's like you're sitting there with no work and you're like, maybe I do want to get into large scale demolition. It's like, now I'm pricing, big equipment. Now I'm pricing some yellow iron. I don't know.
I mean, that is one thing. So if, for those listeners who are listening to this, Brock Peel from Canadian Sanitation, I've mentioned him a couple times in episodes, but I've done 3 episodes with him at this point, and the dude is incredible at his focus. He just said, I'm saying no to everything but septic installs. And he's just really good at saying no. And he's really good at, like, these are the pieces of equipment we have, and this equipment works on nothing but septic installs. So that's listeners, if you're,
I listened to your recap yesterday where you mentioned Brock, and I was like, I got to go back and listen to that episode.
I don't think we've published the one that we did for season 2 yet. I recorded it like a week or 2 ago with him, but it's interesting. With a crew of 3, they've done 2.3 in revenue, and one geographic location. And his deal all the time is, it's like, it literally comes back to focus. And so it sounds like you've done an incredible job of being able to say no to those large scale demolition jobs, like not go buy yellow iron to do big demo projects, and focus on your niche. And so I commend you for that. Man, this has been a really fun episode. I think you've shared some insights for people who are either considering starting a business or in the early stages. That is unbelievable helpful. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Austin. This has been super fun. I mean, this is, even just going back and, having all of this fresh on my mind is helpful for me as well. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Cool. Where can listeners find Swift?
Swift is at swift-demo.com. Please check us out and roast our website. And I want to plug the YouTube as well, because for 2025, that's been my goal. I just started a channel. I want to just be putting content out there and build kind of a brand around me that feeds into Swift and everything that's on my mind, help other business owners, help people, decide what type of opportunity vehicle to get in and how to make that successful. So I'll plug that if that's all right. It's kent.fyi is my channel, and should have a couple videos up there by the time that this comes out, kind of on these topics as well.
Awesome. That sounds good. Well, listeners, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast. If you are enjoying this type of content, would you mind to leave us a quick 5-star review on Apple or Spotify? We talk about this all the time on the podcast. I'm a big proponent of asking your customers for 5-star reviews on your Google business page. And podcast is very similar. It's no different than building a service business. Reviews help us out a lot. So if you wouldn't mind, leave a quick review. And then if you're listening on YouTube, would you mind to just like and subscribe to the channel? You're going to get the notifications for when we publish our weekly Friday episodes like this one. And then finally, we leverage AI tools to summarize these episodes and send all the high-level bullet points out to you in a weekly newsletter on Saturday mornings after releasing the episode. So if you have not signed up for that yet, go sign up for the newsletter, ownerops.com/newsletter. That's spelled OWNROPS.com/newsletter. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less. We'll see you guys next week.